Welcome everyone to the continuing Acumatica webinar series. So we're continuing on the supply chain management topic. Last week we covered the revenue stream. Today we're going to be covering the procurement stream. And here's the agenda for today. So topics, we're going to go through our dashboards. We're going to look at a few dashboards and a few intricacies of those that are listed here. Purchase processing. So there are a number of transactions, requests, requisitions, purchase orders, receipts. We're going to go through from beginning to end how to say create initial purchase request all the way to receiving the product in the door, and go through some of the functions and along the way that are available. We'll cover landed costs. So landed costs, as of the latest release, is actually a new separate transaction for capturing costs such as, think of tariffs, think of transportation, that are those types of costs that are required to bring product in-house ready to be fulfilled from, and it adds to the value of the inventory as opposed to being a mere expense for transports or a tax expense or a tariffs expense. So we're going to go through landed cost processing just as we will have had with purchase order processing, but it's a much shorter script to go through. And then lastly, at the end, we have to process vendor bills. So we'll go through some vendor bill processing and an extension that we provided called the AP Inbox Assist that you may find beneficial. So first, we'll start with looking at a few dashboards. Get into the software here. Save them as favorites for the sake of time. So the first one I want to look at is the Purchasing Manager dashboard. Just want to make some notes on these dashboards. So purchase suggestions, we drill down into that. This is a generic inquiry that's producing the results here, showing these items that need to be ordered and show how much need to be ordered. So if we look at this Lego 500-piece set, we see we have a reorder point when the product comes to below 200. We need to order some. We see the quantity we have available is 120. So now that's produced a number of 80, of those that need to be ordered. What's neat about this generic inquiry? So generic inquiries are basically the queries that behind the widgets in our dashboards. Not only is it producing the results here, but also we see this hyperlink on the need to order column. We click onto it. It brings us to the prepare replenishment screen. So we can go ahead and create that replenishment and start fulfilling the inventory that we need to maintain the ideal stock levels that we set for that item. So just wanted to show that as a particular note of interest on this Purchasing Manager dashboard. Another one is the overdue receipts widget. So we see a red shading. So green usually means that we have a favorable situation. Red means not so favorable, unfavorable situation. We drill down into the overdue receipts widget. Just want to note here that what we're seeing are three different purchase orders. On each of those purchase orders is a specific promised on date that is added to it. So we see all three of these dates are behind, way behind. We're in December 2018, so this one goes back to October. This one goes back several months earlier in the year, and this one goes back a few years. So this is again another generic inquiry. It's producing these results showing the late purchase order receipts and providing the results right to you through the dashboard. Lastly, as a purchasing manager, also want to see any purchase orders that are pending approval. We have a green favorable status, 0. That's about as favorable as it gets. There's nothing to be worked upon. If that number were 1 or more, then purchasing manager will want to take action and review and approve or do something otherwise to the purchase order if approval isn't warranted for it. So just a few of the widgets here on the Purchasing Manager dashboard that I wanted to point out. Next dashboard I want to look at is the Receiving Clerk dashboard. Couple of notes here. This is a Receipts with No Bills widget. So this is on the receiving clerk dashboard, but you can imagine this would also be useful for the accounts payable department to think, hey, there's product that has been received in-house, but yet we haven't processed an accounts payable bill. Why? We haven't received the vendor invoice, or we haven't received the vendor invoice, but they're sitting on somebody's desk and somebody needs to get working on that. So this is also valuable for accounts payable department, but is shown on the receiving clerk dashboard. That's also a good check to make sure that bills are being processed, moved along accordingly. Another widget here that I want to point out is this items to put away widget. So here's a list of items. We see these different warehouse IDs. Within the warehouses, we create location IDs. So each of these has a location ID of receiving. So imagine we have a warehouse that has a location called receiving, where when the product comes in the door, we just put it there. It's like right on the dock. It's in receiving, great. But then there's probably a step to say we need to put it away somewhere, put it to somewhere to get it onto the next step, whether it's to make it ready for sales order fulfillment, ready for kit assembly, ready for manufacturing. And that's what this is showing. This is showing, hey, there's this product in the receiving location of the warehouse, or warehouses in this case, and there should be action taken to them that they need to move along. They need to move along, get taken from that location and moved into some next staging area for one of those three activities that I just mentioned. So that's the receiving clerk dashboard and a couple of widgets of interest there. Lastly, we want to look at the AP clerk dashboard. Overdue accounts, overdue bills, red, unfavorable status. So we can drill right down into the overdue accounts widget and see all the individual vendors that are overdue. We can drill down into the overdue bills widget and can see here are the bills, when were they due, how much is due, look at the details and go after them. Then I like to consider this the work list area for an accounts payable clerk employee. So do I have any bills to approve? No. Great, green, favorable status. Any bills to process to move along? Nope, great, green status. But certainly do have a lot of vendor bills to pay, so better get started on that. Drill down into the vendor bills to pay widget and can start working on all of those. So it's a nice way to show for an accounts payable clerk role. This is what needs to be worked on, what needs attention, and also what needs attention in terms of overdue bills that need to be paid in the overdue accounts. So we can have all that sitting for the AP clerk, ready to go, be able to dive into the details and get their work moved along. Okay. So that's just a little bit on the dashboards that are within the procurement stream of supply chain management. Next, I want to move into purchase processing. And what I want to do here is actually, right now I'm logged in as an administrator. An administrator basically has access to anything and everything within Acumatica. So I'm going to actually log out and log in with another user, last name Williams. Give this a little bit more of a real view of an employee who's working in Acumatica and it doesn't have access to every single menu item and all the capabilities of the suite. So I'm going to go back here. So purchase processing, we have requests, we have requisitions, we have purchase orders, and we receive against those purchase orders. I want to take a look at the purchases workspace, and here are those transaction types, and just discuss a little bit about these. So here's the request transaction. We're going to go ahead and say like we're starting to create one. I want to make some notes on this here. So requests are typically used for initial budget approval. And we also have a request class here. You see a couple of them, one for a customer request and another for internal request. This is where I personally have had experience 100% with purchase requests, that whenever a purchase request transaction is brought up needed for a demo or for a particular client, this is usually what it's used for. Say, hey, we have an internal request. We need to get some supplies in-house, and start with a purchase request that this transaction really requires minimal information to be added to it to move it along into a requisition and then subsequently into a full-fledged purchase order to receive against. So we can create customer requests, but as we saw last week, or for those of you that were on the webinar series last week, looking at the revenue stream, customer requests usually start with a sales order, and the sales order is either fulfilled from inventory, or in the case of a drop ship, a purchase order gets created off of the sales order and then received against, representing shipment from the supplier directly to the customer. So that capability is here, and I didn't want to gloss over it, but what we're going to be doing for today is look at an internal request for supplies and seeing that all the way through. So just wanted to point out that differentiation between the request classes. And then when this request, after it's been filled out, it has the status. It's starts off in a hold status. It ultimately gets approved, and then when it's approved, a requisition can be created for it to ultimately fulfill the needs. So we're going to take a look at that shortly here and how to process all of that. I just wanted to describe the purchase request and now differentiate that a little bit from between that and then purchase requisitions, which we'll go into next here. And so for purchase requisitions, what we have is a couple things. First of all, we have an approval details subtab, and we can put this through a review and approval process as we can with requests, as well as subsequently purchase orders that are created. So we have a full approval details tab here that we can see this requisition all the way through until a purchase order gets created from it. Also, we have this bidding tab, and this is probably the most used sub-tab of them all when it comes to requisition. So what we can do is add one or more vendors here. We can send requests, send the bid requests to those vendors. Say, hey, we have a need to bring in some product. Give us your best availability of the product and price, and then we can choose which vendor we want to go with, and then from that point on, then we can create the purchase order. So we'll see that in action here momentarily. But I just want to show a little bit. We have some more details here, more functionality with the requisition, and this is basically the launching pad to take that request that's now been converted into a requisition, and then create a purchase order that we'll ultimately receive against. So we're going to go ahead and start from the beginning. Do want to mention too, we could just skip creating a purchase request, skip creating a purchase requisition, and go ahead and just create a purchase order ad hoc. Likewise, we could just skip the request and create a requisition and convert that into a purchase order. For today, we're going to go through the full process here. So creating a request, I'm going to go ahead and start that up. So this is going to be an internal request for supplies. We're going to say, let's view laptops. Okay. I'm going to add an item. We'll make it not from the retail, but from the wholesale warehouse. Default quantity selected is 1. We'll make that 20. Not 120, 20. Type correct. All right, so Acer laptop, order quantity 20. This is a purchase request. We gave it a description of new laptops. We can review budget details here. Okay, we have a budget amount of $43,000 and change. This is how much we spent to date. We have some approvals to go through. We're going to go bypass that and push this request all the way through for the sake of time. So now that's all there is. That's all that needs to be added to this purchase request screen is basically give it a description. It's not even a requirement, but is best practice is to give a little indication of why this purchase request is being made. Pick the item, pick the quantity, and we're ready to go. So we can take that, hold off, save it, and that's it. So we've got that purchase request from Kasheen Williams. Now I'm going to go log out and back in as the administrator. I'm going to take this purchase request and all the rest of the way, the requisitions, purchase orders, and receipts with the administrator ID. All right, so I'm going to go back to that purchases workspace. And we can come underneath here, underneath requisitions, say create requisitions. And here we are. We see, let me expand this a little bit here. So here's today's date. This is that request number that was assigned, request number 11 with some leading zeros. Acer laptops, 20 of them, great. So we'll go ahead and select that, process it. And now we have a requisition in an on hold status. We'll move to this bidding subtab, clear these two fields out. So like defaults for the request. And instead we say, hey, we want to add 2 vendors to this request to get our best pricing. So we'll pick the go-to vendor as 1, and we'll pick Eastcom Electronic Supplies as the other. Release that hold, save the requisition. Now we see the status as pending billing here. Come up to this menu item, vendor notifications, send all requests. After we do that, we see this request sent box being checked for both vendors. There's a little bit of a delay here, but when we come and open up this activities menu, these are both of the emails that just went out from that action. So here's the requisition information being sent to that Eastcom vendor. We'll close that out. Now we'll see. Oh, there we go. There's a little bit of a delay there. We see there are 2 activities logged on this requisition. Those were the 2 emails that we just sent through the vendor notifications dropdown. So the 2 vendors have gotten their notifications that they're being requested to bid on this purchase. And so from here, we can say, okay, they've reviewed them and now they're responding. Now let's go ahead and enter the responses. So we see here, this is the go-to vendor, the first of the 2 vendors. Here's the order quantity for the requisition. And this is the response back from the vendor. What's the minimum quantity that they can satisfy? They can satisfy the full quantity, and what is their bid? So it's for that amount, I'll say it's for $230. We'll give it a bid number of 1. We'll save that. Then we can scroll to the next bidding response, rather the second vendor that's been selected on that bidding subtab. There's that Eastcom Electronic Supplies vendor. Same thing. And maybe they have a lower bid cost. Save that. So now we know that this second vendor, they had a better cost that they provided. You see that in the total extended cost up above here. So that's the one that we're going to pick. So we're going to go back to the requisition. Come back to that bidding tab. And we're going to go ahead and choose that vendor. So now we see that vendor listed up at the top here of the bidding sub tab and the location by default that comes along with it. Okay. And that's basically it. And what we also want to note here, we had the status of pending billing, and now that requisition's changed to be open. So at this point, we are ready to create a purchase order for it. So we've got the vendor selected. We're ready to go. We can come here into the actions menu, create orders. It says create orders, not purchase orders. So we see these 2 different sub tabs. So if this was a customer request, we could see a sales order being generated. Nothing is being generated here. But note that after I've selected create orders, now the status of the requisition is set to release. Go to that purchase orders sub tab, and now we've got a purchase order to work against. So go ahead, open up that purchase order. And this is a lot of basics, yes, standard purchase order functionality. So we're in the purchase order. We got a pending approval status. I'm the administrator. I'm just going to go ahead and push this through, approve that purchase order. And what I want to also do want to note that we have assignment and approval maps in Acumatica. So here's just an example of a two-step approval process. If we decided to push POs through this process, we could say, hey, here any purchase order that isn't set to hold, send it to this person, Layla, for approval by accounting, and then here's a second step for Maxwell Baker, an executive. If the purchase order happens to be greater than $5,000, then there's that second required approval. In this case, I'm the administrator. We're not pushing it through these two individuals, and for the sake of time, and have now got this purchase order approved and ready to be worked against. So that is it. We've got that purchase order for the 20 laptops. From the actions menu of the purchase order, we can go ahead and enter a PO receipt. And we'll release that seat. But, getting a little bit of an error here. There's a required field. Whenever we see an asterisk, we need to fill it out. So think of maybe a vendor invoice number. We can put in some particular value here to satisfy the required value that's needed on this purchase receipt. Save that. And now we can go ahead and release that purchase order. Did also want to note that we have this create bill checkbox selected. So after releasing that purchase order, we come to this billing history, and there is the vendor bill that has been created as a result. That's automatic with the release of the receipt itself. So that is it. So we've gone from request to requisition, a purchase order to receipt. Did want to also note on this topic, going back to our purchases workspace, we went in here to this create requisitions page. So we can create more than one at a given time. We just chose one and click process. We could be selective and check a handful, click process, or just click process all, and go through the entire list of all these requests that need to be that requisitions need to be created for. Likewise, we can do the same thing with creating purchase orders. So we actually have inventory replenishment requests here, and we could be choosing and pick which ones we want to have purchase orders created for, or process the whole lot of them. So I just want to point out that we're going through each of these transactions individually, but we can do them in mass as well. All right, so that is purchase processing. Next, I want to move on to landed cost. So landed cost is a new transaction in Acumatica. And here we see it, landed cost transaction. What we're going to do, we're going to create, it's basically a vendor bill from think of a transportation company. We're going to apply that towards a receipt that we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and start creating this. And this is just like creating any transaction, like a purchase order or a vendor bill. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a transit transport vendor. Then we add the line detail. Instead of having an item code, we have landed cost codes defined. So they behave very much the same, where there's default accounting defined behind them. We have, see here, we have customs duty as a landed cost code, and we have freight and transportation. I'm going to choose that one. Now to say it's a $50 bill for freight and transportation that this vendor is charging us. So that's it. Basically created the single line item for a $50 bill. I'm going to select this create bill checkbox. So it didn't come in by default. That's a system setting that can be changed. But it just, as we saw with the receipt, where that box was checked when we released the receipt, it automatically created the bill. Same thing applies here. Same logic applies with the landed cost transaction. So now we've got this landed cost transaction added the $50 a line for the transportation expense. Now I'm going to go ahead and into the document details section, and we can select individual PO receipt lines or entire PO receipts. We're going to do the latter, add an entire PO receipt. So there's that, we call that vendor reference number. I just typed in ad hoc 34567. That was the receipt that we just created, so I'll select that. choose add and close. So now we've got that receipt of that product associated to this landed cost document. At this point, we release a hold on the landed cost transaction, save it. Oh, there's that vendor reference number. I'm just going to go backwards with a value here. Save that and go ahead and release the landed cost transaction. All right. Now, if we go back to the landed cost sub-tab, we see two things. We see the vendor bill and we see an inventory reference number. So it's like basically an adjustment to inventory. So I want to take a look at the details behind those. So we look at this vendor bill. So these are a little bit different in the world of landed costs than standard bills that are created for, say, purchase order receipts or services. So here we have a vendor bill. We've got a batch number for it. This is, think of it as the journal posted to the general ledger. So we've got a payable of $50 that we owe to the vendor. But instead of debiting an expense, we have this landed cost accrual account being debited for $50. We're going to see that cleared out in the other document. So here's the inventory reference number, the other document. Look at its batch number. And so now that landed cost accrual has been cleared out, and we've added $50 of value to the asset, to the inventory. So a little bit different as opposed to, say, just purely expensing service. We're actually adding value on the balance sheet, in this case, to inventory. So that's the premise of landed costs in the world of accounting. That it's these aren't pure expenses. That it's value adds to the inventory products itself. So that's as easy and straightforward as it gets, I believe, for a landed cost. That it's almost like creating an accounts payable bill, but it's a different type of transaction. We associate a receipt to it, and we're having that accounting logic being applied upon releasing the hold and releasing it to the general ledger. So now that we've gone through all that, we need to pay some bills, right? So we're going to go ahead and do some vendor bill processing, and also want to show an extension we've got called AP Inbox Assist. So I'm going to go back into that vendor bill for that transit transport vendor. Straightforward from the actions menu of the bill, select pay bill, apply adjustment. This vendor has a default method of check. We can change that. We can change that to cash. We can change it to a wire. We can generate ACH payments out of AP. So just wanted to note that as well. For this demo, we're just going to leave it as check, and we're going to end up printing it and posting this payment as a result. So leaving that as is, releasing the hold, and now it's in a pending print status. So I'll save that. Go ahead and print the check. So it's automatically selected. Click process, and now we've got basically the image of the check. So think of the check stock being in the printer, and send this to the printer, and it'll print right on top of it. Now we're going to go back to the payment. You note the status has changed to printed. We just saw the image, and we'll go ahead and release that to the general ledger. And again, just like with purchase orders, did want to note, closing out of all of this, that in the accounts payable department, we could also apply bill approval. So here's something very similar to the purchase order approval assignment and approval map that we looked at. Any AP bills going to this person, Layla, again. She would be very busy if these were turned on. And then any bills that are greater than $1,000 requiring a second approval, in this case from executive Michael Andrews. So just want to note that, again, the assignment and approval maps, it can be applied to all these transactions, and just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that. Now I'm going to go into the payables workspace. We have this AP Inbox Assist tile here. I want to show how that works. So think that if had a email address set up for the accounts payable department for vendors to send their paper invoices, and now you can take those paper invoices and convert them into a payable transaction to process against. That's a nice little benefit that a lot of our clients like. So I'm going to show how that works. So what I've done ahead of time here, I'm going to open up this email in my sent folder. So created this, attached this vendor invoice, sent it to, think of this as the AP email inbox. So democrestwood@gmail.com, a Gmail account. Open up the invoice, and some funny guy decided to make a $3.14 tip on this invoice via the pi sign. So that's a little invoice that we have here that's been sent to the AP department to be processed. And now we go back into Acumatica and want to show just a little bit of the setup here. So we define that Gmail account in Acumatica, set up some required values for server information, whatnot, and we also have this checkbox here. So this email account is enabled for that inbox. So it's just a little bit of setup here. It's real straightforward, just a short set of instructions to do that we very well know how to do. And what we do is go into the standard menu, send and receive email. So this is that email account that was set up for AP Inbox Assist. And we have the action to say send all, receive all, or send and receive all. So we're just receiving email, and that's all we want to do, and go ahead and process that. Did want to note, we can add this to a schedule so we don't have to say, hey, send and receive emails from the AP inbox into Acumatica. We can just have that scheduled to run as frequently as we want, 3 or 4 times a day, or how often we would desire. So I'm just doing this manually, selecting the email, click process. Got the green check mark, so that's good to go. So we're going to go back into our payables workspace, look in the AP inbox, and there's that email. You see the image here, and we can go ahead and create an AP bill from it. So I can say, yeah, this is the go-to vendor. What's the amount on it? Let me look at the image. It's for $30. I'll just call a little invoice on as a reference number and as the description. And by default, we say mark email process. So after we're done creating the AP bill, this goes away from the inbox, so we don't have to look at it anymore, or note that we don't have any further action to take. And that's it. Then we go along our way to processing the accounts payable bill, just as we do any other bill that we would enter in online otherwise. That is everything we've got to show today for the procurement stream. Hope you found that useful. And off the topic of the procurement stream, but on the topic of supply chain management, I just want to give a heads up regarding the revenue stream side of operations. That, let's just say, rumor has it that the customer portal in Acumatica, and the customer portal allows the ability for customers to look at their invoices and do some other things. But rumor has it that we're on the cusp of having functionality for customers to be able to pay through that portal. So I just want to give that heads up to folks that we're very excited to hear that news, and but with a little bit of hesitation, because we want to see it actually come to life. But that's just some news that's a little bit hot off the presses, and I heard it through a rumor mill, so I know this, but you didn't hear from me about that.
Thanks for watching. To learn more about our products, visit www.crestwood.com. Hope to see you there soon.